Listen up, because the clown show you're about to witness will make you feel like the smartest human on planet Earth. We're talking about a bank robber whose high-speed getaway vehicle was a riding lawnmower that ran out of gas 50 feet later, a tattoo enthusiast who inked his entire murder scene across his own chest like a vacation souvenir, and a galaxy-brain genius who rubbed lemon juice on his face because he was convinced it made him invisible to security cameras. These are 111 of the dumbest criminal masterminds in American history, so spectacularly bad at crime that even the handcuffs felt embarrassed. Smash subscribe like it stole your chicken nuggets, because the stupidity only free falls from here, and number 71 will permanently break your brain. 1. In 2010, somewhere in Connecticut, Albert Bailey looked at the long history of bank robbery and decided it needed better customer service. 10 minutes before walking in, he called the bank and politely asked the tellers to have his cash neatly prepared for pickup, like he was ordering takeout. The tellers, stunned by this masterclass in criminal genius, quietly dialed 911 and waited. By the time Albert strolled through the doors expecting his pre-packaged fortune, officers were already inside with arms folded, ready to personally welcome the worst bank robber the entire state of Connecticut had ever seen walk through those doors. 2. Back in 2008 in the great state of Illinois, Ruben Zarate marched into a muffler shop and demanded the safe only to learn the manager with the combination was not around. Most criminals would have quietly disappeared into the night without saying another word. Ruben instead pulled out his personal phone number, handed it directly to the clerk, and asked for a friendly call once the manager returned. The clerk nodded politely and immediately gifted that number straight to the police. When Ruben strutted back later expecting his big score, officers were waiting to greet him at the door. 3. Maryland in 1978 produced one of the most polite burglars in American history, thanks to a man named Charles A. Merriweather. He broke into a home expecting a serious payday, but found absolutely nothing worth stealing inside. A normal thief would have walked out frustrated and disappeared into the night without a second thought. Charles, however, felt genuinely guilty about wasting the homeowner's time. So he grabbed a checkbook lying nearby and wrote the victim an $11 check signed with his own real full legal name. Police did not need fingerprints or witnesses. They simply read the signature and arrested him. 4. Few criminal disguises have ever failed as spectacularly as the one Dennis Hawkins wore in Pennsylvania back in 2010. He strutted into a bank wearing a blonde wig, fake breasts, and oversized clown pants, clearly convinced nobody would recognize him under such a creative costume. There was just one tiny problem with his master plan. Dennis completely forgot to shave off his thick, highly distinctive mustache, which sat proudly above his bright lipstick. Witnesses described a confused clown lady with serious facial hair, and police identified him within minutes. His brilliant disguise fooled exactly 0 people across the entire town. 5. Some criminals dream of escaping the law, and others dream of joining it, which brings us to Tedero Edwards from Florida in 2005. He decided to chase his lifelong ambition of becoming a sworn police officer on the very same morning he stole a car. Tedero confidently drove the hot vehicle straight to the police academy, parked it right outside the entrance, and walked in to begin his exam. Officers ran the plates within minutes and realized their newest recruit candidate was actively committing grand theft auto on their property. He failed the exam, the background check, and his entire career instantly. 6. Of all the ways a criminal could accidentally confess to murder, Anthony Garcia from California, in 2008, chose the most permanent option available to mankind. After committing a brutal grocery store killing, he decided the best way to honor the moment was through dedicated body art. He got a massive, incredibly detailed tattoo of the entire crime scene inked across his bare chest. Every location, every victim, every bullet trajectory was permanently displayed for the world to admire. Years later, a detective spotted the tattoo, recognized the unsolved case, and basically read the confession straight off his torso. 7. Long before he became a legend in psychology textbooks, MacArthur Wheeler was just a Pennsylvania man with a citrus-based dream in 1995. He genuinely believed that rubbing pure lemon juice all over his face would make him completely invisible to security cameras like magical ink on a child's letter. Armed with his juicy shield, he confidently robbed 2 banks in broad daylight, smiling directly at every single camera in the building. He was arrested that same night, absolutely stunned that his lemons had betrayed him. His case later inspired serious research into how deeply stupid people misjudge themselves. 8. Not every car thief realizes that locking yourself inside the vehicle is the easiest way to fail at car theft, but Stephen Johnston from California in 2012 found out the hard way. He climbed into a parked car intending to steal it, and immediately discovered he could not figure out how to get back out. Panicking and clearly running low on logic, Stephen did the only thing that made sense to him in the moment. He called 911 and reported that someone was trying to break into the car. Officers arrived and found the thief trapped inside his own crime scene. 9. The city of Detroit, Michigan has seen its share of bank robberies over the decades, but the 1989 attempt by a man named Roney remains uniquely embarrassing. He walked into a busy local branch, marched straight up to the teller, and demanded every dollar in the drawer immediately. The weapon he chose to wave around menacingly was a standard household rubber toilet plunger gripped tightly like a loaded firearm. The teller stared at him blankly, trying to decide whether this was a robbery or a plumbing emergency in progress. Police arrived quickly and arrested the most clogged criminal mind in Michigan. 10. Bragging about your crime online has rarely worked out for anyone, but Hannah Sabata from Nebraska took the concept to legendary new heights in 2012. She successfully robbed a local bank and walked out with a thick stack of stolen cash like a true professional. The smart move would have been to disappear quietly and never speak of it again to anyone ever. Hannah, however, had bigger plans for her fortune. She uploaded a public YouTube video of herself fanning the cash across her face captioned, "Chick Bank Robber." Police identified her within 10 seconds of pressing play. 11. Climbing down a chimney works wonderfully if you happen to be Santa Claus, but Mark Smith from Illinois in 2007 was definitely not Santa Claus. He decided the best way to break into a closed tavern was to slide headfirst down its narrow brick chimney like a holiday legend with criminal ambitions. Unfortunately, Mark got himself wedged completely upside down inside the chimney and could not move an inch in any direction. He hung there for 10 long hours screaming for help until pedestrians finally called 911. Firefighters had to free him before police politely arrested the saddest chimney sweep in Illinois history. 12. Mailing drugs into a prison is already a terrible idea, but Corey McClary from New Jersey in 2004 managed to make it significantly worse. He carefully packed a shipment of illegal narcotics intended for an inmate and dropped it into the mail without a second thought. The one detail he overlooked was placing the correct postage on the envelope before sending it off. The post office promptly returned the package to the listed sender, which happened to be Corey's real home address. Officers were waiting on his doorstep, ready to accept delivery of both the package and the man who shipped it. 13. Hallucinations have inspired many strange decisions, but few quite as heroic as the one Michael Orchard made in New York in 2016. Under the heavy influence of substances, he became convinced his neighbor's house was engulfed in raging flames and a helpless dog was trapped inside. Michael bravely kicked down the door, charged into the home, and began his daring rescue mission with full commitment. The slight issue was that there was no fire, no smoke, and frankly, no danger of any kind anywhere on the property. He was arrested for burglary while loudly demanding praise for his imaginary act of heroism. 14. Customer service complaints belong at corporate offices, not police stations, but Gregory Leas from West Virginia in 1993 did not seem to grasp that distinction. He walked confidently into his local police station, fully prepared to file a formal grievance about a recent disappointing purchase. The product in question was a bag of crack cocaine he had bought from a street dealer who had apparently sold him poor quality merchandise. Gregory wanted justice for his ripped-off investment and expected officers to take immediate action. They certainly took action, just not exactly the kind of action he had been hoping for. 15. Escaping a facility usually requires speed stealth, and at least one functioning getaway vehicle, which Tyler Newell from Pennsylvania in 2017 completely ignored. He successfully broke free from custody and immediately scanned his surroundings for the perfect escape ride. His eyes landed on a slow-moving electric golf cart casually parked nearby, and his fate was sealed. Tyler hopped in and led local police on a thrilling 5-mile-per-hour pursuit across an open course. Officers practically jogged alongside him as he putted toward freedom. The chase ended quickly because golf carts were never designed for fleeing criminal justice. 16. Bank robberies have featured many getaway vehicles over the years, but Wayne Green from Ohio in 1997 introduced one nobody saw coming. After holding up a local bank, he raced outside and leapt onto his chosen escape vehicle, which happened to be a commercial riding lawnmower. Wayne fired it up and began his slow, majestic ride toward freedom across the open road. About 50 feet later, the lawnmower coughed, sputtered, and ran completely out of fuel right there on the pavement. He sat helplessly atop his trusty mower until police arrived to remove him from his throne. 17. Smuggling a live animal out of a pet store sounds difficult, and David Goodhall from South Carolina in 2003 proved exactly why nobody should try. He decided to steal a beautiful exotic parrot by hiding the bird under his tall, fancy top hat. David tipped the hat back into place, tried to look casual, and began walking confidently toward the exit doors. The parrot, however, did not enjoy being smuggled and expressed its opinion by biting his ear hard enough to make him scream. Staff watched a man yelp dramatically while a hat full of feathers flapped angrily down the aisle. 18. Choosing a building to burglarize is a basic skill most criminals master early, but Sergio de Jesus from New Jersey in 1990 somehow skipped that lesson entirely. He broke into the basement of a random building hoping to find valuable items to steal and resell. While creeping around in the dark, he started noticing uniforms, badges, and a suspicious amount of police equipment everywhere he looked. Sergio had unknowingly broken into the basement of an active, fully staffed police precinct. Officers upstairs heard the noise, came down to investigate, and arrested the unluckiest burglar in the entire state of New Jersey. 19. Drive-through windows were designed for cars, not robbers, but Jonathan Payne from Georgia in 2011 decided that detail was negotiable. He walked up to a fast food drive-through window completely on foot and slid a handwritten demand note through the opening to the cashier. The employee glanced at the note, glanced at the man standing where a car should be, and made an executive decision. She slammed the window shut, locked it firmly, and called the police without saying a single word. Jonathan stood awkwardly outside, waiting for cash that was never ever going to come. 20. Stolen merchandise usually disappears quietly into the shadows, but Mark Moore from California in 2013 took a much bolder marketing approach to his crime spree. He spent weeks stealing dozens of high-end bicycles from across the neighborhood and quickly ran out of places to store them. So Mark organized a massive, cheerful yard sale and put every single stolen bike on display for the public to buy. One of his very first customers happened to be an actual victim, spotting their own bicycle proudly priced for resale. Police arrived shortly after to shut down the worst business venture in town. 21. Bringing a knife to a gunfight is famously a bad idea, but Derek Mosley from Washington in 2013 chose to bring one to an actual gun store. He walked into the shop, pulled out a small kitchen steak knife, and demanded the owner hand over everything in the register immediately. The owner stared at the tiny blade, glanced at the wall of firearms behind him, and calmly reached for a real loaded handgun. Derek suddenly remembered he had somewhere else to be and tried to flee. Officers arrested him moments later, still clutching the most embarrassing weapon ever drawn inside a gun store. 22. Successfully robbing a store is impressive, but successfully unrobbing it within 5 minutes is a special kind of talent that Edward Thomas from Texas in 1998 truly mastered. He held up a local business, walked out with cash in hand, and felt like an absolute professional for about 30 seconds. Then he reached into his pocket and realized his car keys were missing from their usual spot. Edward had left them sitting on the counter during the robbery. He confidently walked back inside to retrieve them and was greeted by employees who had already called the police on his behalf. 23. Few hostage demands in American history have been as memorable as the one Marshall Ledbetter delivered inside the Florida State Capitol in 1992. He barricaded himself inside the building and announced he would not surrender to any law enforcement officer under any circumstances. His list of demands was short, surprisingly specific, and frankly relatable to anyone who has ever been hungry. Marshall wanted a large cheese pizza and a full case of cold beer delivered immediately. Officials eventually ended the standoff and arrested him along with the legacy of the strangest political protest ever held inside that Capitol. 24. Believing you are about to die can make a person say wild things, which is exactly what happened to James Washington from Tennessee in 2009. While suffering chest pains, he became convinced he was minutes away from a fatal heart attack and decided to clear his conscience. James confessed in vivid detail to a brutal unsolved murder from way back in 1995, thinking the truth would die with him. Doctors, however, saved his life and made a full recovery. Prosecutors politely thanked him for his cooperation, used the confession as evidence, and sent him away for the rest of his life. 25. Bulletproof glass airlocks were designed to stop bank robbers from escaping, which is exactly what John Swalla from New York discovered the hard way in 2008. He marched into a bank, passed his demand note to the teller, and waited for the cash to roll his way. The teller quietly pressed the security button, locking the entire entryway around him. John suddenly found himself sealed inside a clear glass box, like a museum exhibit waiting for officers to arrive. He pounded on the walls dramatically, as customers outside watched the worst bank robbery performance art piece ever staged. 26. Running into the woods to escape police usually works unless the woods happen to belong to the United States military, which John Reese from Texas in 2003 learned firsthand. After robbing a store, he sprinted into a dense forest, hoping to disappear into the trees forever. Unfortunately, his chosen escape route led him directly into the middle of a high-security military training zone. Armed soldiers spotted him quickly and treated him exactly like the unauthorized intruder he was. John surrendered almost immediately to a group of trained personnel who had been waiting all day for someone exactly like him. 27. Backyard decorations rarely play a role in catching criminals, but a decorative alligator statue in Florida became a folk hero in 2014. Carlos Martinez attempted a quiet midnight burglary, creeping through the homeowner's yard under the cover of darkness like a true professional. His career ended abruptly when he tripped over a heavy plastic alligator statue planted firmly in the grass. The fall snapped his ankle clean and left him groaning on the lawn, unable to move an inch. Police arrived to find a grown man defeated by a fake reptile that never even had to lift a tail. 28. Live snakes have never been recommended as robbery tools, and Timothy Randell from Ohio in 2001 discovered exactly why that advice exists. He caught a wild snake outside a gas station and decided it was the perfect weapon for an armed robbery inside. Timothy stormed in, waving the snake around, and demanded the clerk hand over all the cash immediately. The snake apparently disagreed with the plan and sank its fangs directly into Timothy's hand, mid-heist. He dropped everything, screamed loudly, and ran out empty-handed, leaving the clerk staring in disbelief at the entire scene. 29. Smartphones were designed to make life easier, which Robert Knowles from California in 2011 accidentally proved by ruining his entire criminal career with one. After stealing a phone, he wanted to brag to a friend about his impressive new acquisition. Robert opened the voice-to-text feature and dictated a casual message about how he had stolen the device. The phone, however, was still linked to the original owner's family contacts. His confession message went straight to the victim's mother, who immediately forwarded it to the police along with a detailed thank you note. 30. Stealing an outdoor air conditioner unit sounds harmless until you remember those things are connected to massive amounts of live electricity, which James Coldwell from Oklahoma in 1999 forgot completely. He decided to swipe a commercial AC unit by simply cutting all the cables attached to it. Unfortunately for James, those cables were carrying 440 volts of active electrical power straight from the building. The shock launched him backward across the parking lot in spectacular fashion. He survived but was found dazed, smoking slightly, and absolutely ready to be arrested by the responding officers. 31. Wearing matching clothes to a crime scene is generally frowned upon, but Billy Evans from Alabama in 2015 fully embraced the concept. He decided to rob a martial arts equipment store and chose his outfit with surprising care for the occasion. Billy stole a crisp white martial arts uniform from a clothing line hanging outside the building and put it on before walking inside. Witnesses described the suspect as a man dressed in the exact same uniforms the store sold by the dozen. Police arrested him quickly and noted that his fashion sense made identification the easiest task of their entire week. 32. Breaking into an impound lot to retrieve your own seized car sounds bold, until you realize you might lock yourself inside the property, which is exactly what Marcus Thompson from Oregon did in 2012. He cleverly snuck past the fences, planning to drive his car right out the front gate without paying a single fee. While inside the office grabbing his keys, he accidentally left his personal house keys behind on the desk. Marcus turned around to grab them and found the office door had locked behind him. He spent the night trapped inside until staff arrived in the morning. 33. Swamps look like the perfect police escape route in movies, but North Carolina in 2006 proved Hollywood very wrong thanks to Victor Cooper. Fleeing officers on foot, he leapt into a murky swamp, confident the dark water would hide him forever from his pursuers. What Victor did not account for was the wildlife already living comfortably in that swamp before he arrived uninvited. A real nesting goose took serious offense to his presence and began attacking him with shocking aggression and persistence. He scrambled back to shore screaming and surrendered to the laughing officers waiting calmly on dry ground. 34. Walking into a sheriff's office is risky for any criminal, but Samuel Wilkes from Mississippi in 2011 took the gamble to a whole new artistic level. He had just finished spray painting graffiti all over a stranger's house and needed directions to find a friend's place nearby. Without thinking twice, Samuel strolled directly into the local sheriff's office, wearing a shirt absolutely covered in wet, fresh spray paint of the same colors. Deputies took one look at him, glanced at the recent vandalism call on the screen, and made the easiest connection of their entire careers. 35. Counterfeiting money requires precision skill, and at the very absolute minimum, a printer that does not malfunction, which Richard Smith from Nevada in 2009 sadly did not have. He sat down at his cheap home scanner, determined to produce convincing fake $20 bills for spending around town. Somewhere during the scanning process, his own face got accidentally captured by the machine. Richard then printed dozens of bills featuring himself smiling proudly right in the middle where Andrew Jackson should have been staring back. Cashiers recognized him almost instantly when he tried to pay for groceries with his masterpiece. 36. Breaking into a restaurant kitchen sounds smart, until your stomach hijacks the entire operation, which Arthur Bunch from Pennsylvania discovered in 2002. He picked the lock, slipped inside after hours, and quickly became distracted by the well-stocked refrigerator full of fresh ingredients. Arthur decided he deserved a proper celebratory meal before grabbing any cash, so he cooked himself a massive, juicy steak dinner. The food was so satisfying that he fell into a deep, peaceful food coma, right there at the counter. Morning staff arrived to find him snoring loudly with steak grease still on his chin. 37. Stealing copper pipes from old buildings is a classic petty crime, but Daniel Jones from Virginia in 2013 turned his attempt into an unforgettable disaster. He broke into an abandoned historic church and began ripping out the valuable copper piping running through the walls. Unfortunately for Daniel, one of those pipes was still very much connected to an active water main feeding the building. The moment he cut into it, a massive blowout erupted with the force of a small river. Water washed him straight out of the church and into the street where police were already arriving. 38. Choosing a hot sauce can as your robbery weapon already raises red flags, but Kenneth Lawson from Kentucky in 2008 managed to make the situation significantly worse. He marched up to his target armed with a fresh can of extra-strength spicy spray and prepared to incapacitate his victim. Kenneth aimed, sprayed, and immediately realized he had forgotten one important detail about basic outdoor physics. The wind was blowing directly back into his own face at full speed. The hot sauce hit his eyes, instantly blinding him as he stumbled around screaming, while his victim casually called 911. 39. Stealing a flat-screen television seems easy until you realize some hotels really do not want their TVs to leave the building, which Thomas Gorney from Illinois discovered in 2014. He slipped into a hotel lobby, spotted a beautiful large screen mounted on the wall, and decided this would be his big payday. Thomas grabbed the television firmly with both hands and tried to yank it free with all his strength. The TV did not move a single inch because it was bolted into solid steel. He pulled, grunted, and strained until security guards arrived and ended his weightlifting session. 40. Pulling off a bank robbery requires a fast, reliable getaway vehicle, which Eric Rivers from Georgia in 2015 apparently never received the memo about. He successfully robbed a bank, walked outside with the stolen cash, and ran toward his carefully planned escape ride, waiting by the curb. That ride happened to be a bright pink, slow-moving children's bicycle he had spotted earlier on a nearby sidewalk. Eric hopped on and began pedaling furiously down the street at roughly walking speed. Officers caught up to him within seconds and politely helped him off the most embarrassing getaway vehicle ever. 41. Black ice has ended many careers, but few as criminally as the one belonging to Raymond Miller from Missouri in 2007. He successfully robbed a bank, walked out with a fat stack of cash, and felt absolutely unstoppable as he stepped onto the sidewalk. Gravity, however, had other plans for his big day. Raymond's foot hit a hidden patch of black ice directly outside the bank entrance and sent him flying into the air. He landed flat on the concrete, knocking himself completely unconscious within seconds. Police arrived to find a sleeping robber surrounded by scattered cash and absolutely no need for a chase. 42. Handing a teller anything with your real name printed on it is criminal suicide, which David Zancanelli from Colorado in 2010 somehow failed to realize. He marched into a bank and slid his carefully prepared demand note across the counter with full confidence. The teller flipped the paper over and noticed something deeply unusual about the backside of the note. It was David's official state-issued parole release document with his full legal name, address, and case number printed clearly across the top. She quietly signaled security while he stood there waiting for his cash to arrive. 43. A permanent marker is a wonderful tool for many things, but disguising your face during a home invasion is definitely not one of them. Matthew McNelly from Iowa in 2009 tested that theory anyway, with full commitment to the craft. He grabbed a black Sharpie and scribbled what he believed was a convincing ski mask design directly onto his own face before breaking in. Witnesses described the suspect as a man with a poorly drawn doodle covering his cheeks and forehead. Police took one look at the mugshot and confirmed that he had basically autographed his own arrest. 44. In 2005 in Delaware, a man named James Cook decided his criminal career needed a dramatic signature flair to truly stand out from the crowd. After committing his crime, he left behind a taunting handwritten note proudly signed with the menacing alias, the Top Cat. The mysterious nickname might have worked beautifully if not for one tiny oversight at the scene. James had also accidentally dropped his real workplace identification badge, complete with his actual full name on the ground right next to the note. Officers connected the dots in roughly 4 seconds flat and arrested him. 45. Some criminals study their target carefully before striking, and some criminals do whatever Corey Brown from Louisiana did back in 2011. He spotted a fancy vehicle parked outside a gym and decided it would make the perfect target for a quick smash and grab operation. Corey approached the car preparing to break the window and grab whatever valuables he could find inside. He somehow missed the massive bold lettering printed across the entire side, reading K9 Unit in giant letters. The officer inside the gym returned right as Corey was admiring his soon-to-be biggest mistake yet. 46. Tagging your own street name onto a crime scene is essentially signing a confession, but Peter Addison from California in 2004 was committed to the artistic process. During a burglary, he felt inspired to leave a personal touch on the property he was robbing. Peter pulled out a can of spray paint and tagged his own well-known street nickname directly onto the inside wall in big bold letters. Police arrived shortly after and immediately recognized the signature from countless previous graffiti reports around the neighborhood. He was arrested within hours of completing what might be the dumbest mural ever. 47. $360 billion sounds like a lot of money to anyone except apparently Jeffrey McMullen from Pennsylvania in 2011. He confidently walked into a local bank holding a check filled out for exactly that amount. Jeffrey approached the teller and politely asked her to cash it for him, explaining it was for a secret business venture he was launching soon. The teller stared at the check, stared at the man, and quietly pressed the silent alarm button under the counter. Officers arrived to arrest the only man in history who tried to single-handedly bankrupt the entire planet. 48. Showing up to court for grand theft auto is already stressful, but Brandon Velas from New York in 2012 found a way to make it dramatically worse for himself. He arrived at the courthouse fully prepared to answer for his previous stolen car charge, like any responsible defendant would. The only minor problem was the vehicle he had driven there that very morning. Brandon had stolen a completely different car for the trip and parked it casually right outside the building. Officers ran the plates during his hearing and added a fresh new charge before he could even leave. 49. Industrial trash compactors look like a great hiding spot for fleeing criminals if you ignore the entire purpose of those machines. Philip Williams from Indiana in 2006 unfortunately did exactly that during a desperate chase. He spotted the metal container, climbed inside, and pulled the lid shut, feeling confident. Officers would never think to check there. Moments later, a worker arrived for a routine shift and pressed the activation button without checking the contents first. Philip's screams alerted everyone within hearing distance just in time. He survived the rescue but was promptly arrested by the very officers he had been hiding from. 50. Scorpions have no business being inside a retail store, and even less business being inside someone's shirt. But Christopher Woods from Texas in 2013 disagreed on both points. He decided to shoplift merchandise by hiding it under his clothing and somehow chose a live venomous scorpion as his stealth assistant. Christopher stuffed the creature down his shirt alongside the stolen goods and tried to walk casually toward the exit. The scorpion expressed its displeasure by repeatedly stinging him over and over again. He collapsed screaming in the aisle as employees watched the wildest shoplifting attempt of their entire careers. 51. Power tools have their proper place in life, and intimidating a robbery victim is definitely not one of them. Donald Jenkins from Tennessee in 2010 chose to ignore that obvious wisdom completely. He marched into his target location, waving around a loud, vibrating electric hedge trimmer as his weapon of choice. The trimmer screamed dramatically and looked genuinely terrifying for about 90 seconds. Then the battery died mid-heist, leaving Donald standing there holding a silent, useless piece of gardening equipment. His victim casually walked away while Donald frantically pressed the trigger, hoping his murderous shrubbery tool would somehow resurrect itself before police arrived. 52. Ordering pizza is meant to be a peaceful experience for everyone involved, which Sean Broadnax from Pennsylvania in 2009 single-handedly ruined. He called a local pizza parlor and placed a large delivery order to his own home address with full confidence in his plan. When the delivery driver pulled up, Sean ambushed him and robbed him for the pizza and the cash. The driver simply reported the address he had been sent to, which happened to be Sean's actual house. Officers arrived within minutes to find a confused thief still eating his stolen pepperoni pizza right on the porch. 53. Curiosity has gotten the best of many people, but Zachary Burgess from Arizona in 2013 turned curiosity into a felony in record-breaking time. He had always wondered what it might feel like to drive a massive commercial passenger bus down a busy road. Zachary spotted one unattended at a depot and decided this was the perfect opportunity to scratch that lifelong itch. He climbed into the driver's seat, fired up the engine, and immediately discovered buses are extremely hard to steer. 9 parked cars were sacrificed in a perfectly straight line before he finally stopped his journey of automotive discovery. 54. Television remote controls were not designed to threaten human lives, which Gary Vance from Texas in 2011 deeply needed to accept. He wrapped a standard TV remote inside a black grocery bag and decided it now looked exactly like a high-tech weapon. Gary walked into a gas station, pointed his disguised remote at the clerk, and claimed it was a laser detonator capable of vaporizing the entire building instantly. The clerk laughed, pressed the silent alarm, and waited patiently for the show to end. Police arrived to arrest the only criminal ever stopped by channel surfing technology in human history. 55. Bringing a map to your own bank robbery is responsible planning, but losing the map mid-heist is something else entirely. DeAndre Robinson from Maryland in 2012 managed to do exactly that during his big moment. He had carefully drawn out his planned escape route in vivid detail before walking into the building. Somewhere between handing over the demand note and grabbing the cash, DeAndre dropped the entire printed map directly onto the lobby floor. Detectives picked it up afterward and simply followed the route step by step. He was arrested at the exact destination his own map had thoughtfully provided. 56. Stealing a city bus sounds impressive until you realize buses come with built-in advertising boards that announce exactly what they are doing. George Albright from Massachusetts in 2005 learned this the hard way during his bold bus theft attempt. He snuck into a depot, grabbed the keys, and drove off into the city traffic feeling like a transportation kingpin. The only issue was the bright electronic destination sign mounted on the front of the bus. It still proudly displayed the message out of service for every police officer and pedestrian to clearly see. He was pulled over within minutes. 57. Plastic bags have many uses around the home, but functioning as a robbery disguise is absolutely not one of them. Keith Smith from New Jersey in 2011 unfortunately discovered this during his big bank job. He grabbed a completely clear transparent plastic shopping bag and pulled it down over his entire face as his master disguise. Surveillance cameras captured a perfectly crisp, high-definition image of his features through the see-through plastic. Witnesses described the suspect as a man with a bag on his head and a face fully visible underneath. Police identified him within an hour without breaking a sweat. 58. Glass doors have ended many great escape plans, but few as abruptly as the one Ronald Strong attempted in New Hampshire back in 2003. He committed his crime, turned to sprint dramatically toward freedom, and aimed directly for the exit door waiting at the end of the room. Ronald was absolutely convinced the door was already wide open and ready for his heroic getaway. The door, however, was very much closed and very much made of solid, heavy glass. He smashed into it at full sprint, shattered the panel, and dropped instantly to the floor in a beautifully embarrassing heap. 59. Manual transmissions have humbled countless drivers over the years, and Justin Stymies from Colorado in 2011 joined that long, proud tradition in spectacular fashion. He successfully broke into a parked vehicle and climbed behind the wheel, ready to drive off into the sunset with his new ride. The car, however, was a stick shift, and Justin had absolutely no idea how to operate one. He sat there awkwardly grinding gears and stalling repeatedly while bystanders began noticing the suspicious activity. Police arrived to find him still stuck in the driveway, trying desperately to figure out what the third pedal actually does. 60. Mid-burglary social media breaks are a relatively new criminal habit, but Trevor Jones from Colorado in 2014 pioneered the trend in unforgettable fashion. He broke into a home, and somewhere between grabbing valuables decided he absolutely needed to check his personal Facebook profile right that moment. Trevor sat down at the victim's home computer, logged into his own account, and scrolled through notifications like he was on a coffee break. He then walked out without bothering to log out of his profile. Police simply opened the browser, read his name, and made the easiest arrest of the entire year. 61. Social media has destroyed many criminal careers, but few as efficiently as the one belonging to Levi Charles Reardon from Montana in 2015. He was actively on the run from law enforcement with his face plastered across every wanted poster in the region. While casually scrolling Facebook one day, Levi stumbled across his very own mugshot posted on the local Crime Stoppers page asking for tips. Most fugitives would have quietly closed the app and panicked. Levi, however, decided to leave a friendly thumbs up like on the post. Officers traced the like within hours and arrested the most polite fugitive Montana had ever seen. 62. Leaving your keys at a crime scene is bad enough, but messaging the victim about it through their own Facebook is a whole new level of confidence, which Nicholas Wigg from Minnesota achieved in 2014. He broke into a home, grabbed valuables, and accidentally left his personal keys behind on the kitchen counter. Realizing his mistake later, Nicholas logged into Facebook on the victim's computer and sent the homeowner a polite message asking if his keys could please be returned. The victim agreed, scheduled a meeting, and waited with police standing right next to him at the front door. 63. Fake mustaches have served performers well for centuries, but disguising bank robbers is apparently outside their professional skill set. Joseph Jenkins from Florida in 2013 found this out during his big heist. He pressed a fake mustache firmly onto his upper lip and confidently approached the teller window, believing he looked like a completely different man. Halfway through demanding the cash, his sticky disguise gave up the fight entirely. The mustache peeled off his face and fell directly into the teller's open drop box for the cash. Officers later collected it as the single most embarrassing piece of evidence imaginable. 64. Hiding places usually work better when they are not actively patrolled by law enforcement, which Jonathan Roach from South Carolina in 2009 unfortunately ignored. He sprinted out of a store clutching stolen merchandise and scanned the parking lot desperately for somewhere to disappear immediately. A nearby unmarked van had its rear doors slightly open, offering the perfect escape sanctuary in his panicked mind. Jonathan dove inside, slammed the door shut, and sighed in relief at his brilliant getaway plan. The van, however, belonged to undercover officers who were already inside watching him in stunned silence and amusement. 65. Ankle monitors were specifically invented to prevent exactly the kind of brilliant decision Christopher Kronk made in Florida back in 2008. He was already on court-ordered house arrest with a real-time GPS tracking device strapped firmly to his ankle. Christopher decided this seemed like the perfect moment to commit a residential burglary across town. He broke in, stole valuables, and walked back home feeling proud of his successful evening's work. Police pulled up his exact movement history within minutes and matched his location to the burglary down to the second. He had basically narrated his own crime spree live. 66. Prescription bottles come with helpful labels that conveniently include the patient's full name, which Willie Hall from Georgia in 2010 forgot during his big criminal moment. He approached the register at a retail store ready to commit a robbery and pulled items from his pocket while preparing his demand. Somewhere during the chaos, his custom medical prescription bottle fell out and landed right on the counter in front of the cashier. His full legal name and address were printed clearly across the label for everyone to read. Police needed roughly 20 seconds to track him down at home. 67. Counterfeit money requires basic attention to historical detail, which Kevin from Maine in 2011 apparently considered an optional requirement. He pulled into a gas station and handed the cashier what he believed was a perfectly convincing fake $10 bill. The cashier glanced at the bill and immediately noticed something deeply wrong with the famous face printed on it. Alexander Hamilton had been completely replaced with a picture of Abraham Lincoln staring back from the center. Kevin had somehow mixed up the wrong president on the wrong denomination entirely. Officers arrived to arrest the worst history student in the entire state. 68. Cardboard boxes have many practical uses around the house, but functioning as a bank robbery mask is genuinely not one of them. Gary Gross from Wisconsin in 2004 decided to disagree with that universal truth. He grabbed an entire Amazon shipping box, pulled it down over his head, and walked into the bank ready for action. The only problem was that Gary had completely forgotten to cut any eye holes into his cardboard disguise. He smashed face first into walls, counters, and customers while loudly demanding cash he could not even see. Police arrested the only criminal ever defeated by basic geometry. 69. Repainting a getaway car is genuinely smart criminal strategy unless you decide to do it during afternoon rush hour on a public street. Jason Miller from Utah in 2015 made exactly that choice. He grabbed a few cans of white spray paint and began frantically coating his vehicle right there on the curb in broad daylight. Drivers slowed down to gawk, pedestrians pulled out their phones, and someone eventually called the non-emergency line just out of pure curiosity. Officers arrived to find Jason still painting with great determination, clearly believing nobody would notice his stealthy automotive makeover in progress. 70. Pillowcases have a long history as cash bags during bank robberies, which Brian West from Kansas, in 2009, wanted to honor with personal flair. He walked into a bank, approached the teller, and handed over a sturdy pillowcase to be filled with all the money in the drawer. There was just one charming personal touch he had failed to consider before showing up. His pillowcase had his own full name beautifully embroidered across the front in large stitched letters. The teller smiled, filled it up, and watched him leave with his name-signed receipt. Police met him at home before dinner. 71. Derek Bowman walked into a Nebraska store in 2013 with serious shoplifting plans and one truly catastrophic fashion choice. His feet were strapped into a pair of bright children's sneakers that flashed colorful lights with every single step he took. Crouching behind shelves to hide became completely pointless because his shoes turned into a personal disco show announcing his exact location. Store employees followed the blinking trail directly to his hiding spot and called police within minutes. Derek essentially equipped himself with a wearable arrest beacon and somehow expected stealth results. His shoes worked perfectly against him from the moment he stepped through the entrance. 72. Stealing a massive commercial vending machine sounds impressive until you actually have to open the thing afterward. Stephen Vane learned this hard lesson in Oklahoma back in 2012 after successfully dragging one home through sheer determination. The machine sat heavy and stubborn in his front yard, refusing to surrender a single snack or coin to its new owner. Stephen tried everything he could think of and eventually just gave up on the project entirely. Police later found the abandoned vending machine sitting proudly on his lawn like the world's most obvious confession. The address basically did all the detective work for them. 73. Walking into a grocery store with a banana in your pocket is normal behavior for most Americans. Pretending that banana is a loaded firearm during an armed robbery is significantly less normal. Paul Davis attempted exactly this strategy in Arkansas back in 2014 with disastrous fruit-related consequences. Halfway through his demands, he accidentally pulled the banana fully out of his pocket, revealing his terrifying weapon for what it truly was. The cashier stared at the produce, stared at Paul, and clearly decided this was not a real threat. Paul was arrested moments later, still holding his slightly bruised accomplice. 74. Imagine planning a quick burglary escape using the slowest construction vehicle ever built by human hands. Robert Vance made this exact decision in New Mexico back in 2011 after breaking into a job site overnight. His chosen getaway vehicle was a massive industrial forklift designed for lifting pallets rather than fleeing crime scenes at speed. The forklift moved at roughly walking pace as Robert tried desperately to outrun the situation he had created. Police caught up almost immediately because catching up to a forklift requires very little effort from anyone involved. His escape plan was defeated by basic physics and common sense. 75. Using a stolen credit card requires at least a tiny amount of caution about leaving digital footprints behind. Joshua in North Dakota skipped that entire concept back in 2015 by ordering a video game subscription with his stolen card. The subscription was linked directly to his real home address, his real email, and his real personal account information. Investigators essentially received a complete identity package neatly delivered through the gaming company's database. Joshua was arrested within days because he wanted to play games more than he wanted to avoid prison. His digital trail led police straight to his living room couch. 76. Robbing a bank with your own child's bright lime green toy gun takes a special kind of courage. Charles Robertson found that courage somewhere in Virginia back in 2010 and went forward with his bold plan. To make matters significantly worse, he also chose his actual employer's company vehicle as the getaway car. The bright work logo on the side basically advertised exactly which business to call for identification purposes. Police needed roughly one phone call to figure out who Charles was and where to find him. His boss probably had some serious questions waiting at the office the next morning. 77. Leaving a personal item at a crime scene happens occasionally, even to careful criminals everywhere. Leaving your fully completed college homework assignment with your full name and student ID printed on top is something else entirely. Timothy Clark accomplished this remarkable feat in South Dakota back in 2012 during a quiet residential burglary. Police arrived, found the assignment lying on the floor, and basically had his college transcript handed to them. Timothy was identified faster than most professors would have graded the homework itself. His education ended up being far more useful to law enforcement than to his actual academic career. 78. Hiding under a clothing rack inside a store is already a desperate move for any shoplifter. Doing it while still holding an active security alarm tag that is screaming loudly is significantly worse strategy. Marcus Green made this exact choice in Idaho back in 2014 during his great retail escape attempt. The alarm wailed continuously from his hiding spot, like a siren announcing his exact coordinates to every employee. Workers gathered around the clothing rack, listening to the noise and exchanging confused looks before lifting it up. Marcus was arrested, still clutching the screaming tag like a defeated cartoon villain. 79. Disguising your face with clear plastic wrap might seem clever for about 2 seconds of planning. Alan Wilson discovered the deep flaws in this strategy during a Wyoming robbery attempt back in 2011. The plastic immediately stuck flat against his face, distorting his features into a horrifying blurry mess. Breathing became nearly impossible as the wrap pressed tighter with every desperate inhale he attempted. witnesses described a panicking man suffocating inside his own homemade mask while trying to commit crimes. Police arrived to find Allen gasping for air and silently surrendering to whoever showed up first. 80. Dropping your active medical marijuana card with your home address and patient photo on it requires special talent. Kevin Cooper showcased this exact skill in Montana back in 2013 right in front of a wide-awake cashier. The card landed face up on the counter, giving the employee a perfect look at his identification details. Kevin walked out completely unaware that his entire personal profile was now sitting next to the register. Police arrived shortly after and simply read his name, address, and photo straight off the card. His medical situation became significantly less relevant once the legal situation took priority. 81. Handing your real identification card to a cashier while actively stealing merchandise feels almost too bold to be real. Gary Henderson made this happen in Vermont back in 2007 during what should have been a simple shoplifting run. He wanted the store loyalty discount applied to the items he was secretly planning to walk out with unpaid. The cashier scanned the card, pulled up his full name and address, and quietly alerted security behind the counter. Gary essentially registered himself into the store's customer database minutes before his own arrest paperwork was filed. His commitment to saving a few dollars cost him significantly more in legal fees. 82. Stealing an iPad sounds harmless until you remember every modern device syncs automatically to the cloud. Jeremy Parker forgot this minor detail in Iowa back in 2016, right after grabbing his shiny new prize. He decided to celebrate by snapping a triumphant selfie of his own face on the freshly stolen device. The photo uploaded instantly through iCloud directly to the victim's home desktop computer minutes later. The owner stared at her screen, looking at a clear portrait of the thief grinning back at her. Police received the photo, identified Jeremy quickly, and arrested him before he could take another selfie. 83. Walking into a modern bank with an antique pirate flintlock pistol takes a certain theatrical confidence. Arthur Smith displayed exactly that confidence in Delaware back in 2010 during his ambitious heist attempt. The weapon was completely non-functional, pulled directly from some historical display he apparently raided beforehand. Tellers stared at the relic, wondering if they were being robbed or invited to a costume party. Police arrived quickly, and Arthur surrendered without firing the gun because firing was never actually possible. His pistol probably belonged in a museum, and Arthur ended up in a place with significantly less historical charm. 84. Dropping personal paperwork during a bank robbery is bad enough without making it your travel itinerary. Tyler Moore managed this exact accomplishment in Minnesota back in 2014 during his big lobby visit. A printed email containing his flight reservation and confirmation number slipped right out of his pocket. Police picked up the paper and basically received his entire vacation schedule, including departure date and destination city. Tyler was arrested before he could even check in for his flight. His suitcase probably sat unused at home, while he traded a tropical getaway for a much less scenic stay behind bars. 85. Choosing a Segway scooter as your bank robbery getaway vehicle is a creative transportation decision. Douglas Mitchell brought this vision to life in North Carolina back in 2008 with confident determination. The Segway maxed out at roughly 12 miles per hour as he glided away from the scene victoriously. Police followed along at casual driving speed, clearly unsure whether to laugh or simply roll alongside him until he stopped. Douglas was caught within minutes because Segways have never been engineered for outrunning law enforcement vehicles. His escape strategy looked more like a sightseeing tour than an actual criminal pursuit attempt. 86. Stealing a heavy safe sounds like the score of a lifetime until you remember weight is a real thing. Raymond Jones discovered this physical reality in Alabama back in 2012 during a quiet office burglary. He managed to drag the safe out the door but quickly realized he could not carry it any further. Frustrated and exhausted, Raymond simply abandoned the safe sitting on the sidewalk outside the building. Police arrived to find the safe waiting patiently like a lost puppy with fingerprints all over it. Raymond was identified shortly after through evidence he basically gift-wrapped and left in plain sight. 87. Registering a stolen laptop online with your real cell phone number defeats the entire point of stealing it. Scott Peterson achieved this remarkable contradiction in New York back in 2011, right after his successful theft. The laptop immediately began sending automated location alerts straight to the original owner's email inbox. The owner watched the device move across the city in real time like a GPS tracker designed for criminals. Police followed the digital breadcrumbs directly to Scott's location and made the arrest quickly. His new laptop essentially became the most cooperative witness in his entire prosecution case. 88. Trying to rob a fast food joint requires confidence, patience, and apparently a small drink order, according to Larry Jenkins. He attempted this exact heist in Mississippi back in 2015 with a surprisingly polite criminal approach. The cashier explained that she could not open the register without first ringing up an actual purchase. Larry agreed to her terms, bought a dollar drink, waited for the drawer to pop open, and then demanded the cash. Police arrived quickly and arrested him with his beverage still in hand. He essentially paid $1 for the worst customer experience of his entire criminal career. 89. Stuffing a live lobster down your shorts inside a seafood restaurant introduces problems most criminals never consider. Mark Miller pursued this unique theft strategy in Pennsylvania back in 2013 with painful, immediate consequences. The lobster was not impressed by its new location and began pinching aggressively in extremely sensitive areas. Mark screamed loud enough for the entire dining room to turn and witness his crustacean crisis unfold. Staff caught him hopping toward the exit while battling his angry seafood passenger inside his pants. Police arrived shortly after to find a defeated thief desperately negotiating peace terms with a determined lobster. 90. Walking backward out of a store to avoid security cameras sounds clever until you remember peripheral vision exists. Frank Smith executed this maneuver in Ohio back in 2011 with his eyes locked firmly on the ceiling cameras. He successfully avoided showing his face to any of the recording devices inside the building. Unfortunately, Frank also walked directly into a uniformed police officer patrolling the sidewalk outside. The officer caught him mid-backward shuffle and quickly realized this was not normal pedestrian behavior. Frank was arrested instantly because nothing draws police attention faster than a grown man moonwalking out of a store. 91. Getting your foot stuck in the automatic sliding doors should disqualify you from any future criminal career immediately. Samuel attempted his electronics store robbery in Texas back in 2014 with this exact mortifying entrance. The doors slid open, partially closed, sensed his foot, and froze him in place like a defective mannequin. Customers walked around him while employees watched the entire situation unfold from behind the counter in confusion. Police arrived to find Samuel still wedged half inside and half outside the building. His robbery ended before it ever truly began thanks to the most basic piece of retail technology imaginable. 92. Painting your face with silver metallic spray paint to blend into a wall is a bold artistic choice. Jesse Martinez committed fully to this strategy in Arizona back in 2015 with deeply unfortunate medical consequences. The paint reacted badly with his skin, causing severe burning irritation across his entire face within minutes. Jesse panicked, called 911 himself, and begged for emergency medical assistance to remove the toxic coating. Paramedics arrived alongside police officers who arrested him while doctors worked on his chemical face mask. His attempt to disappear into the scenery ended with him standing out more than ever before. 93. Leaving your wallet at a crime scene is already a career-ending mistake for any burglar. Anthony Smith somehow made it worse in Illinois back in 2012 by leaving behind a personal photo of his grandmother. The wallet sat inside the victim's bedroom containing his ID, his cards, and a sentimental family portrait. Police picked it up, identified him immediately, and likely felt a tiny bit of secondhand embarrassment about the situation. Anthony was arrested quickly, and his grandmother probably had some serious questions waiting for him at the next family dinner. His sentimentality became the most damaging evidence in the entire case. 94. Using a stolen debit card to buy a customized shirt with your own face printed on it requires real commitment. David Evans went all in on this exact vision in California back in 2014 with proud confidence. The shirt arrived featuring a massive photograph of his face directly across the chest in vivid color. Police investigating the stolen card found the order receipt, the delivery address, and the design file effortlessly. David essentially printed his own mugshot weeks before the actual mugshot session at the station. His personal brand strategy worked beautifully against him from start to finish during the investigation. 95. Leading police on a high-speed chase at 8 miles per hour inside a street sweeper requires unique vision. Arthur Vance pursued this dream in Illinois back in 2014 after stealing the active cleaning vehicle. The sweeper continued doing its job throughout the entire pursuit, cleaning pavement as Arthur fled at glacial speeds. Officers followed behind, probably wondering if they should call backup or just finish their lunch first. The chase ended peacefully because there was simply nowhere for an 8-mile-per-hour vehicle to escape to. Arthur was arrested next to the cleanest stretch of street in the entire neighborhood that day. 96. Robbing a pawn shop assumes you can actually leave the pawn shop after completing the robbery. Brian Jenkins overlooked this small but critical detail in Georgia back in 2015 during his confident heist attempt. The owner reached under the counter and locked the heavy glass security door behind him instantly. Brian turned around, realized he was now sealed inside the building, and started panicking immediately. Police arrived to find him pacing back and forth like a hamster trapped inside a very expensive cage. His robbery turned into a polite waiting game, ending with his peaceful surrender to officers outside. 97. Hiding inside a walk-in freezer to escape police might work briefly until the door swings shut behind you. Curtis Bale lived this nightmare in Michigan back in 2012 after breaking into an industrial restaurant kitchen. The heavy door clicked, locked behind him, sealing him inside the freezing metal box for the entire night. Curtis spent hours shivering against frozen meat surrounded by ingredients he could not even cook to warm up. Morning shift workers opened the freezer to find a half-frozen burglar shaking uncontrollably on the floor. Police were called, and Curtis was rescued straight into custody, finally warming up inside a patrol car. 98. Robbing a bank without bringing a bag for the money is the kind of oversight only true amateurs make. James Harris committed this exact blunder in South Carolina back in 2011 during his big counter approach. The confused teller stared at him holding a stack of cash with absolutely nowhere to put it. She eventually handed him a plastic grocery bag just to move the awkward transaction forward. James thanked her, politely loaded the cash, and shuffled out looking more like a shopper than a criminal. Police caught him quickly because grocery bag robbers tend to stand out in surveillance footage. 99. Leaving a smartwatch at a crime scene is significantly worse than leaving a regular wristwatch behind. Richard Johnson made this exact mistake in Tennessee back in 2010 during a residential burglary. The watch continued tracking his heart rate and GPS location every minute after he ran from the house. Police recovered the device, synced it with the connected app, and basically had a live map of his movements. Richard was arrested at his own home while the watch obediently logged his arrival in real time. His fitness routine became the most thoroughly documented evidence trail in the entire prosecution. 100. Attempting to hotwire a car requires the car to actually have working power somewhere inside it. Kevin Davis missed this fundamental requirement in Texas back in 2014 when he tried to steal an electric vehicle. The car was completely dead and currently plugged into a public charging station next to the sidewalk. Kevin spent considerable time fiddling with wires that had zero electricity flowing through them whatsoever. Witnesses watched him struggle for several minutes before calling police, who arrived to handle the confused situation. Kevin essentially tried to start a vehicle that needed an electricity bill rather than ignition wires. 101. Threatening a bank with an empty glass soda bottle and calling it a chemical explosive requires impressive imagination. Charles Taylor brought this exact creativity to West Virginia back in 2012 during his unforgettable robbery attempt. He waved the clear bottle around, claiming it contained a deadly volatile substance ready to destroy the building. Tellers stared at the obvious leftover soda container, probably wondering if this was a prank or a real crime. Police arrived quickly and arrested Charles, still clutching his terrifying glass weapon of mass confusion. His chemistry knowledge clearly needed work, and his criminal future ended faster than the carbonation in his original drink. 102. Believing that burglary is legally impossible during daylight hours is a fascinating personal interpretation of American law. Robert Williams operated under this exact theory in Wisconsin back in 2013 during a confident home invasion. He strolled into the house in broad daylight, completely convinced no charges could possibly apply to him. Neighbors spotted him, immediately called police, and the responding officers arrived to find him casually rummaging through belongings. Robert seemed genuinely shocked to learn that crime is illegal, regardless of what time the sun rises. His legal education clearly came from a source that prosecutors would later find deeply unreliable. 103. Stealing a bicycle that is securely locked with heavy metal chains is a doomed plan from the very start. David Miller pursued this dream in Wyoming back in 2014, right outside a storefront in plain sight. He grabbed the bike, threw his leg over the seat, and started pedaling furiously with maximum effort. The wheels refused to move because the chains were doing exactly what chains are designed to do. David sat there, pumping his legs, going absolutely nowhere, while the store owner watched through the window. Police arrived to find him still struggling against basic physics like a cartoon character trapped in slow motion. 104. Paying for a meal with a counterfeit bill printed on only one side of the paper is genuinely impressive work. Thomas Jenkins attempted this artistic masterpiece in Utah back in 2015 with full confidence in his craftsmanship. The $100 bill featured perfect detail on the front and absolutely nothing on the back. The waiter flipped the bill over, saw the blank white paper, and immediately recognized the obvious problem. Police arrived shortly after to arrest Thomas, who probably forgot that real currency has two sides for important reasons. His printing budget clearly ran out halfway through the project, leaving him with half a crime. 105. Wearing a heavy winter ski mask into a convenience store during a 115-degree summer afternoon is a bold choice. James Wilson committed to this exact outfit in Vermont back in 2011 during the peak of his big robbery plan. The cashier noticed the mask, noticed the sweat, noticed the desperate gasping breaths, and immediately called police. James probably lost 3 pounds in water weight before he even reached the counter to make his demands. Officers arrived to find him barely standing, nearly suffering from heat stroke, and ready to surrender for medical reasons. His criminal career ended through pure exhaustion before any actual robbery occurred. 106. Using duct tape as a face mask sounds creative, until you remember duct tape was designed to stick permanently. John Miller learned this brutal lesson in South Dakota back in 2013 after committing his crime with a sticky disguise. The tape covered his face beautifully during the entire incident, giving him complete anonymity from cameras. Trouble began later when he tried to peel the tape off and discovered his eyebrows and skin coming with it. Witnesses described the suspect as a screaming man, clutching his bleeding face, running through the neighborhood. Police identified him quickly because losing your eyebrows tends to make a person stand out. 107. Threatening the clerk inside a gun store with nothing but a wooden baseball bat is a remarkable display of confidence. Robert Jones marched into a North Dakota gun shop back in 2014 ready to commit this exact bold robbery. The clerk, standing behind a counter filled with loaded firearms, stared at the bat in absolute disbelief. Robert demanded the cash while waving his sporting goods weapon around with surprising commitment to the bit. The clerk calmly reached for an actual firearm, and Robert immediately rethought his entire life strategy. Police arrived to arrest him standing there, clearly outmatched by every single item in the store. 108. Attempting to steal a running car without checking the back seat first leads to truly unfortunate surprises. William Davis discovered this hard truth in Nebraska back in 2012 during his quick driveway theft attempt. The car was idling with the keys inside, waiting for an easy thief to grab the opportunity. William jumped behind the wheel, started driving, and only then noticed the giant police dog staring at him. A K-9 officer was sitting calmly in the back seat alongside his very alert partner, ready to respond. William surrendered immediately because outrunning a trained police dog inside a car is essentially impossible to accomplish. 109. Cutting a live main power line while stealing copper wire is the kind of mistake that announces itself loudly. Michael Smith pulled off this exact accomplishment in Kansas back in 2015 with electrifying consequences for the entire neighborhood. The cut knocked out power to every single house on the block, including his own residence down the street. Investigators followed the outage report directly to the source and found Michael nearby covered in soot. He had essentially turned off his own lights right before police arrived to handle the situation. his electrical theft career ended in darkness both literally and figuratively that very same evening. 110. Coating your hands in thick liquid hand soap to prevent fingerprints is creative thinking with disastrous execution. James Davis brought this strategy to Iowa back in 2014 during a robbery that quickly turned into slapstick comedy. The soap made his hands so slippery that he could barely hold onto his weapon for more than a few seconds. He dropped it repeatedly during the heist, while customers watched the bubbly disaster unfold in front of them. Police arrived to find James still trying desperately to grip anything with his soap-covered hands. His fingerprint prevention plan worked perfectly, except for the part about successfully completing the actual crime. 111. Sliding a flat-screen television down the back of your jacket inside a store is a uniquely committed shoplifting move. John Smith attempted this remarkable escape in Idaho back in 2013 with surprising confidence in his outfit's capacity. The television fit just well enough to ruin his posture for the rest of the trip. He could not bend, sit, or turn his head, making him stand out as the stiffest customer in store history. Employees watched the rigid robot walking toward the exit and stopped him before he made it through the doors. John essentially walked into his own arrest looking like a haunted scarecrow with electronics inside. And there you have it, 111 of the dumbest criminal masterminds in American history. A glorious collection of human beings who looked at the concept of crime and somehow made it dumber than a toddler trying to rob a piggy bank with a spoon. If your brain hurts, congratulations. That's the sound of feeling smarter than every single person in this video. Now, here's the deal. If you laughed even once, you legally owe this channel a like. It's basically the law at this point. Drop a comment telling me which criminal was the absolute dumbest of the bunch, because honestly, picking just one feels impossible, and I genuinely want to know which walnut broke your brain the hardest. Subscribe to Dumb History so you never miss another episode of humanity embarrassing itself in spectacular fashion, because trust me, we are just getting started, and the stupidity vault is bottomless. See you in the next one. Stay smarter than these guys, which honestly is not a very high bar.